All right, guys, welcome to Powerline Podcast. This is episode 109. This week's guest is Bryce Hubbard. We dive into a topic that I get the question quite often, and I ask this question quite a bit, is what does it truly mean to be a journeyman lineman? We talk about a host of other topics, but this is the one we really nailed down. Hope this episode brings you some value. I hope you dig it. Let's jump right into it. Bryce Hubbard, episode 109. Let's get it. All right, Bryce, thank you first off for reaching out and letting me know that you'd like to be a guest on the pod. I liked our first conversation, as brief as it was. You sound like an interesting guy, so I'm stoked to talk to you today. Welcome to the Powerline Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.
It's been a long time coming. Been waiting for it. So
Yeah, I'm sorry for not getting back to you sooner. My DMs become a mess sometimes. I don't know. Instagram does like weird things with their DMs too. Like it'll have them up for a while and then it'll just like drop them down to the bottom and hide them if you don't open them. And like, I'll go back and look and I'm like, and they don't put them in any specific order too. It's like, this guy DM'd you 2 weeks ago. This guy DM'd you yesterday. This guy DM'd you 4 months ago. It's like, I don't know what their logic is, but whatever. Glad to have you aboard.
yeah, here we are.
Okay, let's go start with how I kind of usually start these, just with a brief history of who you are, where you come from. So where are you located in the world and how long have you lived there?
Currently, I'm in Northern California. I grew up in Northern Arizona, town called Chino Valley. It's two hours north of Phoenix. And I got into the trade at 18 years old. And just, it was kind of just pitched to me from a cousin, 2 cousins, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I didn't really have a plan, for what I was going to do after high school. And it just happened to work out.
What did that pitch look like? Like, why did your cousins, how were they in the trade?
Yeah, I have a couple cousins that are in the trade. One was an operator at the utility back home, and another is an outside construction lineman. And the operator, he would stay at our house when he was working around that area, and I was 17 and sitting on the porch talking to him one night, and obviously my parents probably put him up to it, but his dad was in the trade for a long time, like got into it after he came back from Korea. So they had a pretty strong family tradition of doing that. And then so my cousin operator just said, hey, did you ever think about getting into line work? And no, I didn't even know what any of that was, other than, that they did it. And he said, yeah, it's a good thing. I would have loved to become a lineman, but heights were not my thing. And so then I ended up going to a line school about 9 months after I graduated high school, and just leaned into it.
How did you find the experience of line school?
I think it's good to go into something like that. I know a lot of times online people will ask questions of, do you think it's worth it? Yes and no. I mean, if you're looking at it, it's worth it to me in the sense that you're getting surrounded by people that have a like-minded goal, and everybody is focused on getting to a certain point in life. In the sense of like, is it preparing you for the rigors of the trade? It's preparing you to get started, but you just have to take it for what it is. And I think that A lot of people say no, but for me, I say yes. I didn't have a clue what I was getting into other than some family friends and, you know, cousins that weren't really around to get me lined out on anything other than just, hey, go do this. So it definitely put me in the right frame of mind to get into the trade. And even then, was I completely ready, or did I understand what I was getting into? Not really.
I tell people to do what opens the doors for you. Like do whatever you need to do to get into the trade. If you've tried the put your name on the books and wait for an opportunity, especially in California, it's freaking damn near impossible to just go sign up and get a spot. So
Right.
whatever helps you get through the door, if it's really cheap education in the grand scheme of education, you know.
Right. And in that regard, just getting in the game,
Yeah.
you'll become aware of opportunities that, even though you're entering the game at this point and it may not be exactly where you would want to be, you're going to hear more about opportunity. Like, I got in, when did I start? It was 2009. So work was not really going crazy by any means. And just took the first opportunity that came to me. And that was an opportunity at Pike, which everybody turns their nose up to it. But it got me in, and it got me, I didn't have to move back home from Idaho, back to Arizona. So, that was a plus, and immediately went, to the Midwest and eventually on to the East Coast. And, I was in a position when an opportunity did come up for, to become a grunt and sign the books and out of Local 70 in Virginia, that I was in, I was 3 hours away in North Carolina, and I could be there tomorrow. So is it, it's nice to think about hoping for the fairy tale sort of operation where you go in and it's all laid out for you. Now, maybe at a utility that might be the case. I don't know anything about that, but from my experience, I had to say yes to every opportunity that I could.
Yeah.
And it's landed me where I am now. So
that networking as well, that meeting people, that, that those opportunities that were presented on you to even make those decisions to work in the Midwest and go to the East Coast, and like those all came from saying yes to going to line school. So
yeah, you're right. And it's a sort of thing where, I don't really want to say that I was sheltered as a kid, but I lived in it's a small town at the time, probably 5,000 people, farms and ranches. I didn't know a lot of stuff and wasn't exposed to a lot of different mindsets and all the stuff that you're going to experience when you get into the trade. And so, if anything, that time working non-union was a good little like buffer zone for me to grow up just enough to, like, when I got into the part of the trade that I wanted to be in on the union side of stuff, that I was more prepared than had I went and just signed the books. And
100%.
What am I signing the books to do? Like, nobody understands that. When you really have, if you want to dissect that conversation, it takes a while to explain to somebody, like, how exactly do you get in?
Yeah.
But everybody's story is a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I ask each and every person. I'm so interested in like just how they got in, right from how you found the trade to like your path and your way in, because I think there's value there for anybody listening, because that's probably the most popular question I've ever been asked on social media, in the DMs or whatever, is like, how do you get into this trade? What's the secret?
Yeah.
Like, there's no secret. I ask every guest what their story is, and here, go listen to every one, because each one's different. Try your way.
Right. And really, when I get asked that question, and I've helped uh, 2 or 3 people that are actually actively working in the trade that have went and done it, like helped them get pointed in the right direction. But when that question does come across, if I'm out at a bar at home, and how do I get started in that? Somebody that I knew in high school or whatever. Well, I'd like to get into the trade. Do you have a CDL?
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't. Okay, well, all I can tell you at this point is go get that, and then when you have that, come back and talk to me, because without a CDL, it's a nonsense conversation until you get that nailed down, and then you can actually get in somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's
100%.
pretty hard to not.
That's great advice. If there was one other piece of advice that you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what might that be?
Don't get into debt. As bad when the paychecks start to come in, as much as it is tempting to, oh, I can go get that pickup or whatever and handle the payment, just fight that urge until it is an absolute necessity.
It feels like there's a story there.
Oh, I got stories. Yeah. It's I believe that when you have a lot of payments hanging over your head and pressure, and not even, I mean, what I considered pressure at 18 or early 20s, no kids, no wife, like that's nothing compared to when you have kids and a wife, that are depending on your good decision making. But like I said, I left home at 18. I turned 19 in Ohio, and I had a hand-me-down truck, 97 Chevy that my parents had bought brand new when I was 7 years old, and I traveled all over with that thing until I got into the apprenticeship. No smartphone.
Yep.
With like an atlas, and
Oh yeah.
I had to do that now. It'd take me a minute to remember everything. But anyway, got into the apprenticeship, and okay, well, I want to get a truck, and all that stuff can pile up on you really quick, and then you can get in a hole, and then you end up working a job that maybe you don't necessarily like, or you're put in situations that you don't necessarily like, and a lot of times it can override your better judgment. What are you willing to say yes to? It having a bunch of debt over your head and not very much cash in the bank can really affect your mental well-being. It's it's been a lot easier for me to get up in the morning when I don't have after payday and you pay all those bills, and then you look at the account and like, man, all my money's already gone. It's a lot easier to get up and like, no, it's going right into savings. And then, we are going to be able to go pay cash for a vacation, or just when you're done, in the contracting world, when you're done being on a job, you have the money to say, hey guys, like,
yeah,
thanks. And, you're not carrying that, don't want to be their attitude around with you on the job and infecting other people with it. You just tend to be a more pleasant person to be around.
Yeah. 100%.
Has been my experience. It's been a yo-yo thing with me though. I was out of debt for a long time, but we've upgraded our living situation. So it's cyclical, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
but you've got life experiences now behind you.
Right.
You speak of pressure on, and especially the pressure on the youth, like what pressure looks like for an 18-year-old versus, whatever, 40-year-old. What are you seeing in today's youth and their ability to handle pressure? Were we the same way at that age, or is it the same thing, or are they different?
it's interesting that you this question came up because I just yesterday I talked with a good friend who enlisted in the Army at 20 years old, graduated high school with him, and we were talking about the difference of soldiers versus when he got in to what's in there now. And um, I I don't I don't know. I mean, the things that they're worried about, I is it any less significant than what I worried about at 18? I don't really know.
Yeah.
Um, what was the main part of your question though? Just so I don't get off track here.
Just the pressure. Do you see them being able to handle the same sort of pressure that it felt like for us at that age? Like I remember, so I took off. Some context around the question. I took off from home at 18 years old. I left for Australia, and you mentioned, no cell phone, no smartphone, like I had no cell, no smartphone, Atlas map, like just my tickets. I figured everything out on my own. I had to go through Japan, to, Kuala Lumpur, Australia, and I was there for 6 months. Didn't know a soul. Figured it out. Took the train, took the bus, just like figured it out. And I don't know if they're the same way. Like I have a son that's 18 turning 19. I turned 19 in Australia and he's turning 19 now. And I just don't, I see this world that they're living in now. And I'm just like, I don't know if you could handle doing
it. Yeah. And it makes me wonder, is the same amount of pressure being applied?
Mm-hmm.
Like as simple as just traveling for me across the country when I was 19 with an Atlas. Okay, well, here's the deal. You're not going to, you're going through West Virginia. You've never driven through West Virginia. Assume that there isn't going to be cell service if you break down. To call out on your flip phone. Google, like that's not a thing on your phone's not a thing. So like the pressure in that situation is have your route planned out. When we were driving with my family as kids, like Dad, Mom, what mile marker did we just pass? What was the last exit you passed? Dude, I drive 30 minutes down the road. There's sometimes like, how did I even get here? Because you're just zoned out. You're listening to music. Turned left in a quarter mile. Okay. So is the same amount of pressure being applied just in the general sense of life? Probably not. Everything has made our life we're talking in the past 12 years, significantly easier to navigate a 1,000-mile trip. How does that translate into the apprenticeships? There's different types of pressure, but I know that in the sense of hard-nosed lineman, being on your back and breathing down your neck, probably not so much.
Yeah.
And that's for a number of different reasons, but there's I talked with, and in preparation for this, I spoke with my apprenticeship director, and we used to have Super Bowl weekend. We would always have a class that fell on that first weekend of the month. And in Arizona at the time, our classes would always be on the same weekend as our union meeting. So you would go to class Saturday and Sunday morning, and then Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock or noon rather, the union meeting would start, and that would be, everybody was there. But Super Bowl class would have a barbecue, and people would get tore up, drinking and hanging out. And he said now the change that you see is that apprentices, that doesn't happen near as much because of the repercussions that have been installed for getting a DUI. It's so it's just a different sort of mindset that I don't really want to sound like the old guy saying, it's worse or not, but it's certainly different.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's good to, this is why I ask these questions, and I'm just curious in the legit straight up answer, because it's great info for a younger person that's listening to this right now going, from a respectable, person who's been around for a while, just some of the differences, some of the similarities, what you're seeing from a perspective of coming through this industry for X amount of years. Yeah.
Yeah. And something that is different with, certainly with our grandparents' generation to our generation and, your son is, grandma and grandpa remembered information. This is how you get to so-and-so's address. You go down this road, you take this, you go this way, or grandma remembers that recipe.
Yeah.
Something that's shifted. I read a study that said that now these younger generations, my generation included, we don't remember information so much as the ins and outs, nuts and bolts of the information. We remember where to go to access that information because we have so much better access to it.
Yeah.
I don't remember how to cook this recipe, but I do know how to access the recipe.
Yeah.
So it's just a mindset
It's just
shift.
different. Yeah. No, I like that. When you go back to the beginning of my career or even before that, like you really had to take your leader's opinion for face value. Like, so say somebody would just say something, this is how it is. You just had to go, okay, I guess it is. Maybe I'll look it up when I get home in the book, in the encyclopedia or something. Like it was just like,
Yeah.
you had no way unless you knew that information to just, but now what's cool about this generation kind of goes, fuck you. I think you're wrong. Let me
Right.
fact check you. Actually, you're full of
And
shit.
that's another fellow lineman here. We were talking about that with just dealing with some apprentice frustrations, and he's like, it's not that we want to say they're dumber or this or that. They've just figured out like what to spend energy on and what to not.
Yeah.
And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's how it is. And you still can't cheat the work ethic part out of it.
Yeah.
But trying to get them to do payday stuntman and all the other crazy stuff that like has been tradition, like they know, like, no, like I don't really have to do that because whatever, if they don't want to be part of the boys, they don't have to be part of the boys.
Yeah.
Like that's not a requirement. And whereas when I was coming up, like through the apprenticeship and being a grunt and just wanting so bad to be accepted and taking a lot of pride in what I was involved in. Jump out of the plane, dude. I'm going to jump out of the plane. Like it was several times it was just to a fault where like, this is what they want. This is what they're getting, like
100%.
on the line, it's coming. So, but it's a mindset shift thing, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because it's, I mentioned earlier that, the first opportunity I had in union trade was, in a place, Front Royal, Virginia. And right now on a crew that I'm working with a lineman that I met on that job. He was a lineman and I was a grunt. And he was always cool with me, but he would give me shit. And now it's fun to be at that same level with guys that were your mentors. And remember that time you fucked with me? Like, here you go. I'm going to give you one right now.
100%.
It's really so advice also is like, I always heard that the trade was small, but it just gets smaller the further on you go because you meet more people. And so uh,
Yeah, you're
thank
really
God that
just like a one
they don't
step.
remember a lot of that stuff.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you can really say something or do something unsavory, and those people are always going to come back around. You know, sooner or later you're gonna run into them, and or they're going to be running a job or anything, but they're going to be around. That was something I was pretty naive to and didn't really believe. But
There's really not a lot of line workers in North America, in the United States, even. For how big your population is, you whittle that down, there's probably 100,000 line workers,
yeah, I don't know what the hard number is on it, but certainly, and then if you boil that down to even, uh, certain sects of work, IBW, and then you whittle that down to who are the big wheels that are always running in transmission and always running, and then then we subdivide it more into more specialized tasks. You're going to run into people, because there's people that they just do cable splicing, downtown underground San Francisco.
Yeah.
And that's their thing. And they're extremely good at it.
Yeah.
There is no reason for them to go out and get on a dead end board or, why?
Yeah.
So, it's a small world.
And then you imagine like kind of fucking up on a crew like that, that's even narrowed it down, like you just saying, narrowed it right down even smaller, like good luck getting on another underground.
Yeah. And I took that call in San Francisco, when I came back from Puerto Rico, and I had a good buddy that is like an older brother that was working for that company there. And it was like the unicorn call for linemen out here, because it was all night work. You're getting double time, like you're killing it if you can stand it.
Yeah.
And the call was in the hall, and I called him and I said, "Hey man, are they just trying to get somebody? Am I going to get spun if I take a call?" And he's like, "Let me check," because it was a small group of guys at the time, and took the call. Everything was good, and it just wasn't for me. Being underground, nighttime San Francisco, like it wasn't for me. So I did not last long. But when I cashed that last check, I was like, what did I just do? Because it was a big one. But there again, I had, back to the no debt thing, like I had money socked away, and I was in a good position where it's okay. Like we'll find something.
Yeah. I follow, I don't know if you follow Ben Holmes. I've had him on the podcast a few times, and Ben took that job in working underground in San Francisco. I think he lasted like a year. But he had some great Instagram stories just of some of the shit that you see in the streets of San Francisco. Just of a man, and see some dude just taking a shit there beside you.
I didn't even last that long, man. I will be honest. I lasted 1 week, and an overhead call came in. My buddy was running the crew. He's like, I'm there, man. But one of the craziest things I've seen in line work, didn't even have to do with line work, but on that job, I don't know, maybe 1 a.m, whatever it was, come up topside, and a homeless guy walks up to our work area there, doesn't say anything, sits on the curb, takes off his shoe, and just pulls out a needle and runs it right between his toes. And like, I was like, what the fuck is going on? And the inspector's like, yeah, they know that, because we're a utility, that we're obligated to call if they OD, and if they nod out while they're here, they're less likely to have their shit stolen. But I was like, good Lord, man, people live here though, like, It's a wild city. But that's for anybody that may be listening to this that's not in the trade and is thinking about getting into it. If there was another little caveat to that advice, is go to the places that are as far from what you grew up with as possible, and you will appreciate, provided you came from a place you like, you'll appreciate those places even more. San Francisco taught me a lot about that, and I also gotta say, like, I went through the apprenticeship. I started my apprenticeship in Iowa, had an opportunity to get transferred with all my hours back to Arizona, and that's what I did. And topped out and worked there for a year. Really turned up my nose at the thought of going to California, just like a northern Arizona thing. Had some unsolicited beef with people from Northern California moving into Arizona, whatever. Just, uninformed, I guess. But when I did finally end up over here, you like, don't believe all the stories. There's a lot of stuff out here that's, it's not all crazy. LA, San Francisco, there's a lot of open space out here that's extremely rural, extremely remote, rugged. There's all different types of work, but it was something that going through the apprenticeship in Arizona it was kind of put on a pedestal. If you can go out to California and make it like your hand, and like that's not really true at all. Like when there's standing calls and it's a walkthrough, if you have a ticket and you have a pulse, like, you're getting a job. So, like, just because somebody's running a crew out here doesn't mean that they always know what's going on. We all get put into positions that we may or may not be ready for. I've volunteered myself for those positions several times and felt the repercussions months down the road. So just for anybody that may be topping out or maybe on their way out here or whatever, just, if those thoughts are in your head about this being the mecca of line work, there is a lot of good stuff going on out here, but there are also everybody else took a call out here the same way you did, and always keep your head on a swivel. Just because they're out here running a crew doesn't necessarily mean that they're qualified to do so. There's a lot of work that needs to get done out here, and they're throwing bodies at it.
Yeah, this is a great segue actually into talking about bring up the journeyman conversation, and just this whole idea around how to properly become a journeyman. I don't know if that's the right language, but just this, when you brought up not being afraid to try your hand, or like travel, or go do the thing, put your hand up, go sign the books, go get a job somewhere outside of your comfort zone, or even within your community, but maybe it's just something different, like underground or whatever the thing is, but like really getting a wide range of experience doing all of the things maybe before you settle into one thing. And you don't have to do them for a long period of time either. Like, you could spend a couple of months just like with solid underground crew, or with a solid transmission crew, and get a really good understanding of, what's entitled in that position. But I think there's something to that. And I think a lot of people miss out on that. They want to stay home. They want to stay around their family, whatever the excuse is, they miss out on that ability to really learn some things about their trade, about their craft, that I think they're missing out.
Hey,
I don't know.
I would agree with that. You're missing out on an opportunity to learn a lot about yourself too. And not every day is going to be great. Not every crew that you work on is going to be an all-star crew. You're not always going to like everybody that you work with. I know that I came out here 2016 and worked some distro jobs for a couple months, 3 or 4 months, maybe 4 months. Anyway, I got onto a helicopter job here in Northern California, town that I'm in right now, and that's where I met David Page. You had him on the podcast.
Yep.
And there was a lot of really good hands on that job, and I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but I'm saying that in the mindset of like years of experience combined. There was a shitload of well-seasoned linemen that were good transmission hands, doing tower raising, with helicopters, and so I fell in love with that sect of line work. And again, to a fault, but it really did retract from my underground experience. That had that stuff caught me first, I might be sitting here telling a completely different story. Mm-hmm. But going into an underground vault that stinks in San Francisco, when I know like I can go take a call and be out on top of a ridge line, like clean, fresh air, and like I think you end up where you're supposed to be, though.
100% agree with that part. Yeah, 100% agree with
however it shakes out.
Yeah.
If you're true to yourself, I think you'll end up where you're supposed to be. And that just goes for life.
I like recognize what you're a part of at the time too. So if you're a part of something magical, I've been a part of that a few times. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't happen every time. You don't always get on the greatest, best crew in the world. Sometimes they're trash, they're horrible. But when it does happen, recognize it for what it is. Try not to complain about your situation. If it's, been long days on the road, like try to just really learn, enjoy the moment, and enjoy the job. Like get into it, get in a flow, because that doesn't happen all the time. It will happen in your career if you're a journeyman, if you're transient, but like enjoy that, because it's so good when it's good.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen as much as you'd like to think. Where you have a group of, where you have a 5 or a 6 man crew where everybody gets along and it's great. So when it does happen, soak it in, take a picture of it. Like I have a really good buddy that, we were apprentices together, and this old man, this old lineman, he brought in a photo album, like a book photo album, one day, and he was showing it to us, and he had all these badass pictures, like crazy stuff. And he knew everybody in the pictures, and we walked away from that conversation and we're like, man, we have a camera in our hand, in our pocket. What do we have pictures of? Like that, even if like, okay, we're not doing something that's like good for the gram, but when we're 60 and broke down, 65, like you're sitting at home, it would be cool to just have a picture of me and you working this pole out beside this river or whatever. So like that places some value in it for me. I've tried to get better about that, at the appropriate place and time, taking pictures, and putting them in a spot where I won't lose them if, the phone dies or whatever, but actually cataloging that stuff. And the value of having good people around you, also like see it for what it is and soak that stuff in, because especially where I don't know, I can't speak for underground or different parts of, specialty line work, but As far as the transmission stuff goes, I believe we're coming around to a point where more heavy transmission is going to need to be built, and like a lot of those older generations of linemen are retiring or retired, and those guys have tricks that I can't even dream of.
Yep.
And know how to figure that wire correctly so we're not wasting a bunch, and like get your moves down. And when I say get your moves down, like when you get yourself in a bind on transmission, it takes quite a bit to get out of it. Some improper planning, like, oh, we need to get this equipment in there. Well, we already moved the dozers like 15 miles.
Like a couple D10 cats to get yourself.
Yeah. So we'll take a day and we'll go up there and get those back here. Well, you do that 5 times and you've burnt a week. So, soaking that stuff up from those older generations is not something to be taken lightly. And I work with a guy right now. He's got a book of just stuff that he has kept in page protectors and math formulas and all this stuff. And I saw it sitting on his seat, and I was like, "What is this?" And started digging through it. And no, I was like, can I take this and copy it? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So now I have myself a very modest, 3-ring binder of a lot of that stuff in there. Maybe technology has made some of it obsolete with some of the math and what surveying equipment can do now. But there were people that were doing this stuff that had a whole lot less to work with, and it got done.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of just picking those guys' brains.
Absolutely.
And trying to get that information.
Absolutely. It's good to know it, even if you know that, this piece of tech is going to figure it out for me. It's good to know the analog version of how to do it.
Right. And you never know when it's going to get you out of a jam,
Absolutely.
With flight training, we have the GPS, but I still mapped out everything that I did, longhand, and could figure it all out with math. But there's real value in that, where just another thing that I was listening to with you guys, talking about your procedures in barehanding.
Yeah.
And it's really good stuff. And it doesn't always apply to everyday run-of-the-mill line work, but boy, when I have worked for barehanders that have applied that same sort of logic to just going and doing 60 work in downtown San Francisco or San Diego, boy, it makes stuff run a whole lot smoother when everybody's on the same page and we're not all trying to be the quarterback. We're playing our position.
That's why I try to talk
organization.
Yeah, that's why I talk about it, and I present it that way. Like, it's not going to be applicable to your average all of it anyway. It's not going to be applicable to your average distribution job, but just those pieces, like getting everybody on the same page and communicating that and just getting people to sign off on what your next move is. Just if you did that, you're safer, more efficient, like all of the above. But lots of people,
all of the above.
Yeah.
And I believe you were talking with somebody a while back about crew effectiveness and like making our moves and our time count. Yeah. But if we can just take that procedure and really apply it to our tailboards, you don't have to spend an hour talking about it, but you're doing this, go down the list. And if we can all save 15 minutes on a 5-man crew, we've saved ourselves an hour and 15 minutes of running in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And we can get some momentum. And that's like my biggest pet peeve is what are we doing?
Yeah.
Did you get, no, I'm not sure. Okay. Let's just let's all get on the same page. 5 minutes spent now saves us 2 hours later. So
on the fly decision making as well, where it's not communicated. So no problem making decisions on the fly and changing things. But if they're significant enough, like just stopping for a second and getting everybody on the same page, so your grunt doesn't waste a half an hour putting an arm together that he didn't need to put together, and then you come down and yell at him for putting that arm together when you changed the whole scenario upstairs. Whatever the, quick example, but just stop for a second, get everybody on the same page, verbal sign off even, let's go, let's carry on. I don't know.
Yeah.
People just...
No, it's, I say it a lot, and my buddy, I don't know if we're allowed to name drop on here, but he's like my big brother. His name's Rhett Horton, and
absolutely,
he went and got he's bare hand certified, and he worked for a while doing that, and then I went to work for him in San Diego. I met him on that Virginia job when I was 18.
Yep.
And he's kept me under his wing the whole entire time. But down there, after getting all that precision, I guess, instilled in him, we had some moments where it's like, dude, you're kind of and I mean, we got into it a couple times, but we're all better for it. But that just have your shit together, be professional.
Yeah.
Like, give them what they're paying for. Do it the right way. If somebody is not pulling in the same direction, let's figure it out. Because some of those 60s jobs, you can really burn a lot of time.
Oh yeah.
Underground risers and all this stuff, underbilled, and you're dealing with public. And if we're not all going in the same direction, but we had a crew of 4 younger guys, including myself, and we just had that talk when we all got together. How do we want to do this? Like, what do we want to be? Because it was 4 motivated young guys and Rhett running the crew, and everybody's listening to the Jocko podcast, and it had a bunch of positive energy, and it was one of the best it was one of the best yards I ever worked in. It was a two crew yard, but everybody was on the same page. If there was a crew unloading stuff, and it was all linemen, most of the time it was all linemen. Nobody took off and left anybody hanging out in the weeds. Like, hey man, we'll help you get your stuff loaded together, because we're always working together. And okay, yeah, you could load the stuff in the morning, but then you're going to hit morning traffic trying to get across San Diego County. And then you're just going to spend the time, 4 hours tomorrow night. So, but everybody pulling the same direction as a yard made that one of the best places to work. But definitely my top 3.
So you mentioned a bunch of good things, and I'm interested in this question. So you mentioned a bunch of things, like being professional and this whole list of things, actually every major point that we've talked about since we started talking. So the question is, in your opinion, what does it mean to be a journeyman? Because this is
okay, yeah, back to the point.
No, but this is the best trade. But this is good because we set it up. We really did set it up. We've been talking about professionalism throughout everything we've been talking about, and this is one of those things that, this trade is one of the best skilled trades, if not the best skilled trade there is. Biased opinion or not, it's one of the friggin' raddest. It's cooler than plumbing and carpentry and all of the above. What does it mean to be a journeyman, and what does it mean to be a journeyman in this craft?
I boil it down to 2 things. You got to have both of them, and that's integrity and craftsmanship. You need to believe in those 2 things, and don't compromise those values for anything.
Explain them.
Do the right thing. Integrity, just the basic definition of integrity. Do the right thing when no one's looking.
100%.
Stick to your work procedures. That's what keeps you safe. And then the craftsmanship, well, that's good enough. Well, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks good for
I
my
can't see it
house.
from my house. Well, yeah. Well, Jesus can see it from his.
Yeah.
So, like, whatever deity you believe in, like, they can see it. But those are, just keep those two things, and really hold yourself to them, and to the best of your ability, hold the people that you're working with to them. If you have the opportunity where everybody is on that same page, like, hey, integrity, like, we are always gonna use a proper amount of cover, and we're not gonna shame anybody for coming down and getting more cover. Like, oh well, if it's in your head, obviously you need more. Sticking to the plan. Are we doing what we said we were going to do? Are we giving the customer the full value for a 10-hour workday? Are we giving them 10 hours worth of work? Are we not putting our employer in a bind with the customer? I mean, it can go on for days, but whatever your definition of integrity,
Do you think that we're teaching this very well or good in the trade right now? Do you think we're lacking in it?
Oh, I think we're lacking. I think we, as linemen, myself included, are lacking. I think that there's a reason for halls to be, and the code of excellence stuff coming out, because halls are recognizing it, that we're really walking a fine line of where we're just being overpaid to not get a whole lot done. And what is the cause of that is just we've tolerated it as a trade. It boils down to, are you keeping your trucks clean, or is it a rat's nest driving down the road? And then, well, we'd rather fight it than just take the time to get it clean once, and then 10 minutes at the end of the day keeps your stuff squared away.
That makes so much sense. Like, if you reference that back to like even Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life, and like rule number 1 is make your bed, like keep tidy your room. Like,
yeah,
straight up relate that to exactly what you just said about keeping your truck clean. Like, that is a 100% direct reflection of who you are the rest of the day.
Right. And it's just that lesson, like, that is the making the bed for the line crew, right? Are your trucks clean?
Yeah.
Hey, where's this tool? Well, it wasn't that bin the other day, but now it's, so just getting a plan and procedure of, this is where this tool goes, this is where this tool goes every time. And everybody's on that same page. It can make you guys, it's just like, if you're rushing out of the house, you're running late, and, oh, did I remember this? And you're driving, and did I remember that? Oh, that coffee pot left on, or whatever. That's so much more stress that you put on yourself. Like, wouldn't it have just been less stressful to just get up half an hour earlier, be ready to go, load your stuff the night before? So it's literally a turnkey operation. I think that, like, to fix it, we have to really get back to basics with line work. And it really, I hate to keep saying it. Yeah. It starts with like the most rudimentary stuff of housekeeping, and just like square your washers off, and make sure your material's squared away. Like, are you installing arm? Are they level when you install them? Like your arms, or anything. It can be anything, depending on whatever spec you're working on.
Yeah.
It's it's so simple and it takes care of so much. Like, be 5 minutes early, like as like a base note, be walking in there like that. We're here. We're ready for work. I know another general foreman that he flips out if anybody's in the morning show up with their boots untied.
Yeah.
He loses his shit. Like, we're here. And
that's the way I was trained too. I was trained that same, and it's ingrained in me. If I can't stand not being early for something. Like, I will, if I show up in a new town, I don't know where the yard is. Like, if I show up the day before, I'm driving out there, even if it's 9:00 at night, to find
just to do some recon,
just to make sure that, yeah, I know where it is. And then I'm going to be there. If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, yeah, you're late. And if you're late, don't even bother showing up.
Right. And I've, we all have things happen, but like,
for sure,
at least like make it like be, do your best. Integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right
back to there. Would you want, if you were the general foreman, would you, and you're there doing your morning, talk with the guys, would you want a crew of guys walking in, mid sentence when you might be trying to make a really important point, like, hey, don't go past this open point.
Yeah.
And then these guys over in the corner, because these guys are walking in late, missed what you just said. Yeah. And like, it can be something like, and that might be an extreme example, but it could very easily, somebody misses information and then you get a domino effect, and who knows what it could lead to, but it very easily could. So just that's integrity to your brothers. Like, be on time.
It's to your craft as well. I talked about this recently in one of my more recent podcasts, and I remember my father. I'm a second generation lineman. My father, like, he got ahead in life by putting in the extra work, and so many people don't want to put in that extra work. It's like they pay me till 4, I'm done at 4. I'm like, that's great. I get it. I get why, but you're not going to get any further ahead in life if you're not putting in some extra work here and there. Like you said, one of the best yards you were ever in was one where everyone stuck around to make sure everyone's helping everybody get shit squared away for the next day. And then even take that a step further into like self-development, whatever self-development looks like, whether that's learning more about the industry. And that's what my dad would do. He would come home and he would read boring ass freaking textbooks on like physics and substations, and like, but that put him ahead in life. He did very well in this industry. Because, like, do you want the doctor to operate you on, if you're going to have an operation, do you want the doctor that, it's 30 minutes to go, start sacking my shit? Or do you want the guy that's going home and reading? Yeah. Do you want the guy that's, reading those journals in bed at home? Is that like, which one? Now, obviously we're not doctors, but when it comes to knowing your craft, why not be that way? If you're going to do something, why not be that way? And I try to be like that. Something that we initially spoke about was like, the trade can, in that initial conversation I had with you, is how it can kind of become like a stepping stone. Like, I'm going to get out and I'm going to do this, whatever the case is. And I was guilty of that. For quite a while. I always wanted to be a pilot, from the time I was a kid. And then I second step apprentice, got to go up in a helicopter. And after that, I didn't want anything to do with planes. It was all helicopter. And then anyway, I kind of forgot about it, got off the transmission stuff through the apprenticeship and whatever. And then got back into it, as a journeyman, and it reignited the fire. So, but I was guilty of it for several years of, I'm going to go and like, I'm just here to make money, to put myself through flight school. And I didn't take stuff as serious as what I set myself back quite a bit, because I could have really been applying myself to this trade. And
here I am today, still doing line work after exploring those opportunities. But I'm right back here for a certain, a few different reasons. But now I look at line work as like, I do want to, when I'm in the mood, I study it. I'll go thumb through a transformer book and like make sure that I'm still remembering stuff, or I'll go crack open a math book and make sure I can still do long division on paper, or in anything like that. It, it's really it's kind of a thing where I'm topped out now. Like, this is it. Lots of guys like to coast, and that's their thing, but it's not mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I get where it comes from, and I understand that, it is about money in the end. But if you just take a step back for a second and learn and look at it from a different perspective, it's like all of these things you're doing are helping you better yourself, and you don't know what opportunities can come out of the fact that you know how to do long division free.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never know.
Do you guys, like, here, and it gets thrown around a lot, like apprentices get referred to as kids.
Yeah.
Like, we'll have the kid go do this. Okay.
For sure.
Now that I'm a dad,
Yeah.
I have a 4-year-old. I think about, like, I just had this thought that if you're going to refer to them as kids, think about like your kids. Are you setting a good example for your son, or like for this apprentice? Are we setting a good example? Now, if it's all within reason. I'm not going to teach any dog to do new tricks if he doesn't want to, but if you have a good apprentice, what you consider to be a good apprentice, whatever that is, put the time into them.
Yeah.
They are our future.
Yeah.
Just like you would with, oh, my kid's really good at throwing a baseball. He wants to play baseball. Are you out there throwing a baseball with him?
Yeah.
Are you fostering that and letting it grow? Because it's real easy to say, okay, hey, clean the truck off and organize the truck. We're gonna bounce out, and then you got this first or second step, third step, whatever they are. You have somebody that maybe they just came off the underground crew where they're driving around in a bread van, and now he's here with, a crummy and two big buckets. What do I put where? I don't know, but they said to organize it. So what his definition of organization may not be yours. So it's just taking a little bit of extra time, but I like to do that. So I'm not trying to talk down to anybody, but if it's me and I have the opportunity, I really like to just take that opportunity. Like, hey man, like, let's kind of get this organized and I'll help you out. And then maybe take some time while you're doing that. And just like you would if you're throwing a baseball with a kid in the backyard, talk to him.
Yeah.
Learn a little bit about him.
Yeah.
You might learn a little bit about what makes him tick, because it's really easy to put a shock collar on a dog and say, I'm going to shock you every time you fuck up. Well, what if that's not what motivates that dog? So I think that, are we slipping? Yeah, we are, because we're not really taking, I don't see a whole lot of time being put in, like on a grand scheme of things. I've seen a definite shift from the time when I was an apprentice. I had upper step apprentices that were investing time into me.
Yeah.
So
I do believe that, I don't know if we're still losing it or what, but I believe that there was a slip in the apprentice master relationship. And I say apprentice master because that's how it always was. To become a true craftsman, a tradesman, get your journeyman status in whatever trade craft that was. You were an apprentice and you learned from a master, and it was
all the way from silversmith days.
Exactly. And it wasn't until you produced actual, things like swords or whatever, and you had to produce a good number of them, and they had to be used, like, and that master had to sign off on you. That's what this is. Like, that's what happens. We have people with real signatures that sign our tickets, like
Right.
sign off on us, saying that we're qualified as a journeyman lineman or as a lineman.
And
that means
there's there, and we get to do that. If you're, I keep saying we, but where I work primarily, it's all journeyman crews. But when you do have the opportunity and you have an apprentice around, their monthly evals, we get to have that talk with. You should be having that talk more than once a month, but you get the opportunity to enter those comments now into a database because it's online. But are you sitting down with the apprentice and hey man, let's come over and talk about your monthly eval? And when I went through the apprenticeship, that shit was all on paper, and you had to bring a little apprentice tax to do the eval, and you would get to sit. Craftsmanship. How do you think your craftsmanship was here for this month? Out of what would you rate it, Bryce? Out of a 1 to 10, like 7. Wrong. Like you don't want to shoot too low, but just the talks and if you had good parents growing up, if you had good dad, mom, or whatever those positive role models were in your life, didn't it feel good when they would, hey, let's talk about what's going on? Like, you are doing really good at this, but here's what we're going to focus on. And to be honest, man, it's been so long since I've had it like an apprentice, being a journeyman, just from what I was doing a couple years ago, and then positions in the industry. It's been a couple years since I've had like that direct relationship. So I can't really speak to a whole lot of like what's going on as of late, other than what I've talked to my apprenticeship director about.
I hope that's happening out there. Like, I don't know either. It's been so long since I don't know if apprentices are getting paired with qualified journeymen, and whether I would hope, this would be my hope, that there's journeymen out there assuming that role of master when they're paired with an apprentice, whether it's for a day or for 2 years. They're going, come here, kid. I'm going to take you under my wing. I'm going to spend the extra time with you. I'm going to run you through weights and forces calculations and your off time, just to make sure that you know your stuff, or whatever. That would be my hope, that that's happening, because if that's happening, our trade is safe. Our trade is good. Our craft is in good hands. So I would hope that that's happening.
Well, yeah. And you're showing them that, that's what you do, just like, with your son, like teaching him how to act. It's a lot of the same sort of thing, the same sort of idea that, I hope that it's going on. I know that with the apprentices that are in our yard, I'm on an all lineman crew right now, but time gets invested to these guys, and I can't really say to what extreme or if they're receptive. But I know that a lot of linemen feel like the apprenticeship has the apprentices back more than the linemen, if they want to deal out some discipline in whatever form or fashion, that the apprenticeship will back up the apprentice. And okay, yeah, that's true. But it's still on us to teach that apprentice. Like, we can't expect the apprenticeship, to teach these guys everything in a 2-week boot camp and a 1-week class every 6 months, and they go in and take a test once a month at the, wherever their local office is at. We're the guys who spend, 95% of the time if not more with them. And we have to hold them to that standard. And if there's something wrong with the apprentice, he's a reflection of the journeyman.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a kind of an unpopular opinion, but it's not really an opinion. It's a fact.
There's something that an apprentice can do as well, is source out that journeyman that you connect with, you jive with, you like how they work, you like their craftsmanship, you like how they handle themselves after work. Even like when you find that person, do what you can without, not in a brown nosing way, but do what you can to make that leader's life better, and then watch how he or she makes your life better. And
right,
that's who you need to source out too. Like there's some responsibility on the apprentice. The apprentice can't just go, because you're an apprentice, you can't just go, oh, I didn't know. I can't just float through. Like if you recognize that somebody's good out there, go after that guy, like become their number one, their right hand dude. Like, and just,
that's what I tried when I said that I was doing things to a fault as a grunt or an apprentice. Like I really latched on to certain people. And you know, my buddy Rhett, like to this day, we're both journeymen. We've both worked with each other, but I mean, that's what kind of relationship it developed into. But I have another family friend who's an apprentice in Colorado, and I helped him get into the trade 3 years ago, and he's had his sets of struggles up there, and you know, but he's getting through it, and he's learning and becoming a better person for it. But there's not a lot of times, but he calls me and has a question, or I'm struggling with this, and like it's a lot, not so much like bookwork stuff, but like crew dynamic sort of stuff, and just being from our hometown, and you know, growing up in the types of families that we do, you're not really exposed to like a lot of people that just don't fucking like you, you know, like everybody's nice. And so, but you know, when you're a kid that grows up in a small town like that, and then you're out there with a bunch of derelict linemen that are just they like to have fun with you by fucking with you. Like you got to learn how to deal with it. But I see a lot of parallels with my journey with his. And he called me maybe it was like over Easter weekend, and had an issue where he was going to have to go to class for a week, but my cousin called me, and he's getting married like the next week, and I'm finally on a good crew, and I'm getting hot time, and I don't really, what do you think? I said, me, I'd tell your cousin you get fucked with that wedding. Like you're finally on a good crew that like want to teach you. You're already going to have to be gone for a week. Like, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Like put forth the effort to be there. Be a teachable person. And like they want you there right now. Don't give them a reason not to. You've been on street lights, you've been on underground, and you're here, you're sixth step. I said, look at it this way, man. You have everything up until this point you've invested to get to this point.
Yeah.
Is going to your cousin's wedding, is it worth like potentially, we need somebody who's here, like, and then you're off that crew, you're back on streetlights as a sixth step, or who knows the cascade of, you know, where that ball could quit rolling.
Limit, yeah.
But like when you get into that point, like put everything you got into it.
Yeah.
Just lean into it for 4 years. And then after that, go to the wedding. Or hey, if you guys stay together for 5 years, I'll buy you a present.
Yeah.
Cause like I'm not into buying into young age weddings, like whatever. That's not my thing. Might be yours, not mine.
Yeah.
But I told him, buddy, like, look at it this way, man. If you buckle down, you could be in a year, year and a half, you could be done, and we could be having this conversation face to face. You could be a journeyman and be done, or you can take 2 weeks off of work essentially, and run the risk of running afoul of the people that were wanting to put time into you, but you weren't there. So let's go find somebody that will. So, like you said, man, the apprentices have to be receptive.
Yeah,
you have to be receptive as an apprentice.
Jimmy brought up a good point in the last podcast that I just put out today. He said something along the lines of like, yes, it is our responsibility as linemen to, bring up the next generation, but we don't get paid to instruct unless that's your job as an instructor. So it's something that we're doing because it's part of our craft. But if you're an ass, or if you're not holding your end of the bargain by being a good apprentice and wanting to learn and being invested and putting your effort forward, it's not our responsibility to change you. Like, there's a system for that.
And that's like the same thing that I told my buddy. Is like, your job is to be a good apprentice. Yeah. Be a good apprentice. Like, and whatever that means for the crew that you're like, that's it. So whatever that means for the crew that you're on, that's what it is. Like, first and foremost, be a good apprentice, and you can't go wrong. So all that stuff, to have known it when I was 18, 19, getting in the apprenticeship, if there's so much more access to information now about what you might be getting yourself into, that for guys that are going through line school, getting into it, like, what was it like for you? Well, your dad was a lineman, so you had an idea of what you were getting into.
Yeah.
But for the vast majority of people that came through with you,
I had an idea because I grew up in it, but it was never, when I grew up around it, it's not something I wanted to do. Even after I graduated high school, I left for Australia. I came back, and it was really, my mother worked in the family business too. And she kept asking me, is this something that you want to do? Is this something you want to do? And I was like, still like, no, not interested in it. Cause I'd never done it. I'd been around the shop. I'd sort of like, all through high school had a job of stocking bucket trucks and digger trucks and bolts and painting trailers and like all the yard hand stuff, like, cause my dad owned a shop. So that's what I would do. But it was never something, I'd never been on the crew before. I'd never climbed. I'd never done any of that. So it wasn't until a foreman that worked for my father kind of pulled me aside, just pulled me out back and said, do you know what you're giving up by not taking this opportunity to become a lineman? And I was just like, dumb kid, 19. No, like, what do you mean? Like, I don't get what you're saying. And he's like, you're missing out on this. He's like, how old are you? 19? He's like, go get your ticket. You're 23, 24 when you top out. Then go do whatever else you want to do. But now you're going to have this trade ticket that you can go all over the world. It's a guaranteed job, pretty much. You'll find somewhere in the world you can do it and make yourself money and provide for your family. And I was like, it just took me one evening. I went home, I thought about it, but it took that little shake, like, grabbed me by the ear. I went back in the next day and went into my dad's office, and I'm like, okay, I think I want to do this. He's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, let's go. I want to do this. So that day, went into the backyard again with this foreman. He threw his hooks at the bottom of the pole. Dave's like, throws his hooks at the bottom of the pole. He's like, here, put these on and get up there. And I was always athletic. I excelled in PE class, and I spent 17 years playing ice hockey very competitively. Like, I was a natural climbing. I loved climbing. I was fine with heights. And I was like, this is pretty cool. I like this. Big smile on my face. And that was it. That's what sunk me. I never looked back. I took every job, every opportunity to go do cool shit. I signed up for the next 15 years straight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What excited you? Like, what really drove you to just keep going? Was it family pressure, or what
No,
about the job
it's
excited you so much?
it's strange because I try to figure that out because I sucked in school. Like school, I'm learning disabilities. I'm a slow reader. I never even read a book in high school. I faked my way through everything before ChatGPT. Faked my
Mhm.
way through everything in school. I just didn't. It's ADD, whatever. Like I just didn't like it. It didn't like me. But when I got into the trade, it was something that I liked. I enjoyed. So I invested my time in it. I was graduated top apprentice, like I did very well. I was always on great crews. I always got on like the bare hand stuff, the heli stuff, like whatever I wanted to do because I worked my ass off to do it because I loved the job. I loved doing it. So I don't know, like I think the job was my motivation, and my family really did install that work ethic too. And you need that work ethic. You need to pair like a love of what you're doing with some hard work to back it up. So I put in the extra hours. I would, you know,
Yeah, I was always just too stubborn to quit too.
yeah,
Like
that too.
I
Competitive
there was
too.
a
I'm
lot of
very
times
competitive.
where I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to be like, I want to be done or whatever. But I just, when I might have been back in Kentucky or Tennessee, and like, I'm not, I'm not willing to pack up my stuff and drive back across the country to have people say under their breath, "Oh,
Yeah,
we knew it wouldn't work out," or whatever it was.
definitely.
Maybe they wouldn't even said that. I don't know, but I used that as a motivation, like to just, yeah, I'm here. I'm 18, 19, working for Pike, and I know this is not forever,
Yeah,
but and there were other guys that came, that I went to line school with, and they came, and they went and signed the books and whatever. They went and sat at home waiting for a groundman call. And meanwhile, like, right, wrong, or indifferent, like, Pike was letting me do a lot of stuff that,
yeah,
looking back, I didn't really have any business doing, but uh, it worked out. Uh, nobody got hurt, and I was working with a group of guys that knew what was going on. That's not, I want to throw that out there too. Like, not that they were underqualified to work the job that they were working, but um, there was just the rules were a whole lot more lax for
yeah.
who was
It's
allowed to go
different
to the class.
times too, right? Like you can't even compare
Right.
5 years ago to now, 10 years ago.
And
You know,
and what excited me was I really, my grandpa was a truck driver. What I always loved, through high school, we were traveling from Arizona to Montana, or doing lots of different stuff for the way that my folks made money. But I loved to travel. I always loved to see something new.
yeah,
Just, oh, I loved calling home, and, oh, I'm in Ohio today, like, and then tomorrow I'm going back to Indiana, or whatever. That was something that just excited me because it was so unique for people from where I'm from.
yeah,
Where lots of people, they work the local jobs there, and that's fine, but just, it gave me something that was just something that, I wouldn't have had an opportunity to do otherwise.
yeah.
To live in every state except for 7 of them before I turned 21, and all through the South. Like, there's not really much reason for me to go back to a lot of those places, but I saw them. I drove the entire length of I-40 4 times by myself before I turned 21.
Yeah.
Um, that's what excited me. It's like, it was something that was just incredibly unique, and the work was, uh, also incredibly unique. But for me, it was really secondary. Like, at that point in my life, I was just excited to be away from home, and there's no way in hell I'm going back and moving back into my old room and
100%.
accepting defeat. you know.
I loved the travel part of it as well. Worked all over the United States, all over Canada, like the places it's taken me, and just like really unique places too. Like this is what the trade gives you the ability to do is like one day I'm in central British Columbia on a four-wheeler and your phone rings, and the next day you're on the East Coast in Connecticut driving a bucket truck into some property that was built in 18 whatever, like
Yeah.
1700s. Like I'm just like, you flick those little orange lights on your bucket truck, and it's an all access pass in a storm call to just drive wherever you want to drive. And
Yeah. Or do you ever think about when you loosen that bolt like on a dead end shoe, like and it's all, it's rusty and pitted, like who was the last guy to touch this thing?
100%.
Or you're climbing up a tower leg, like when was the last time these step bolts were stepped on? Like,
Yeah.
And you're up there, you might be refabricating and drilling through steel that some of the stuff that we've worked on out here is well over 100 years old. And our mag drills, like they don't go through it like they do like the new steel that we put up now. Like,
Yep.
it's real American steel.
Yeah.
You get to put your hands on stuff like where we work up now, like up in the mountains here in Northern California. Like, you might be sitting up on a tower top and like looking out over the Sierras and the Cascades, and who was the last guy to sit up here and like take this in?
Right.
And
there's
just
nothing
like you said
better.
earlier.
And that's what I mean. Like, enjoy that for what it is, because it's like it's gone tomorrow. Like, it's gone after that. That might be the last time that you're ever on a tower bridge like that, with a view like that, with all the fellas. Right. Like, I just really enjoy those moments because they're not going to always be there.
No, and part of that is like taking it in, where I'm sure you've had the thoughts where you might have had a good crew and everybody splits up and goes their own ways, but some guys might get back together and you think like, oh man, or I want to go back up to that place and work like up there, man, it was really cool. Well, what it was,
it's different.
Is dead and gone.
Yeah.
Like, it's never the same, because just like you're never going to have the exact same group of people together. You're never going to be under the exact same circumstances. Take it in for what it is at that point in time, and make your decisions based on what is there in that moment. Because it's really easy to look back on decisions that I've made and man, that was the wrong decision. Well, yeah, like the wrong decision now that we know the outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
But like for that point in time, was that was the correct decision based off of the information you were given.
You could have made a different decision, walked down the street and got hit by a bus, and
yeah,
that was your fate that day.
And it's like a lot of times where stepping up to the plate, I've taken on positions that I wasn't ready for. Early on in my career, foreman spots and just in over my head on stuff. But yeah, maybe not the right decision at the time or for the overall outcome. But what I learned from failure is, in a lot of ways, it's a lot more valuable than just, oh yeah, I jumped into it and it worked out. And then it gives you this false sense of security about knowing like, oh, I just figure stuff out or whatever it is. Like, I believe that giving yourself a chance to fail, or letting yourself get out there is part of the scientific process of figuring shit out. It's like, there's definitely room for failing at a position, and I've failed at a lot of them, but I feel like I'm finally starting to come around where I realize that. And it's definitely, when the help is offered, take it.
Yeah.
Like, don't play the pride card like, oh, we'll get through it, we'll show them, like, because usually that person that's offering you the help has been in those exact same shoes that you're standing in right now, and here, buddy, let me help you out. And it'll be fine to take help.
Failing truly is learning. So just accept failure. It's not even failure. It's just learn from it. It's learning.
Have you done anything? I'm not quite, to be honest, I'm not quite sure exactly what your job title is now, but have you done anything outside of line work and then returned to line work?
For sure.
And how has that altered your perspective on the trade and the job?
My career path briefly was 15 years on the tools. And then I moved into some management and that sort of like upper management type stuff, in office management. I was the resource manager for a contracting company here in BC, and, responsible for hiring and that sort of thing, and dealing with the line workers from that. It wasn't HR, but it was that HR perspective. We kind of dealt with line workers differently than running them through typical HR. Kind of had somebody from the field speak their language. So anyway, that was my job there for a while. And then I did some instructing at Lazy Q for Quanta. So barehand instructing and the line school is where I spent the most of my time instructing the line school at there. And then I was plucked from that to this position now. I was given the opportunity to go work in brand marketing for Quanta corporate. That's where I sit now. Is we get to host the show. Quanta purchased Powerline podcast from me and kept me on as host. And then I'm also working in their brand marketing department now. So I love change. I've always been just like, it's part, I like doing things for a certain amount of time. I love line work. I'm still super, super passionate, obviously, about the trade and helping people through that. But for myself, I like doing different things. So I've always been a guy with the camera. You mentioned taking pictures. I was always the guy taking pictures and packing my camera everywhere, whether it was a GoPro, just quickly taping it on a tower leg and letting it run. That was always me. So now I love learning media, learning how to use a camera, really learning how to use a camera. It's always been something
properly.
Yeah. And I got it dialed now. So it's
and I've always, I take pretty decent pictures, but I'm like, man, when people are like, I took photography, like a lot of my hashtags on like my stuff on Instagram, like not a photographer, like I took this as I was like passing by it, and I caught it in the right frame or whatever. But man, a good picture can really alter the story on what's going on.
Totally.
But I really, especially out here, there's, anywhere that line work's going on, you get some real opportunities for some unique pictures and unique stuff. What my career path, I've always, got in the trade at 18, but 2018, I wanted to get into flying helicopters, and everything kind of came together there for me to where I could go to school back home and work for a company in the process. And that gave me a lot of perspective on like what this trade can give you. And I don't know which podcast you guys were talking about, like the pilots. And if there is one thing that we need to do as an industry, is we need to get these boys need to be getting paid a lot better than what they are. Because that was a main driving force for me to be like, okay, can fly a helicopter. I'm not willing to go that far for as much as I do love it. Like, you would be wildly surprised at, I'm sure some numbers, people have had these conversations, but for the amount of stuff that these guys are responsible for, just in equipment alone, like don't even talk about the lives that are beneath them. However that happens, I really hope that in the next 10 years there can be a little bit of a evolution and get those guys. They should at least be making journeyman scale if they're going to be
It's
up there in the wire.
amazing, amazing what they can do. Like, from the perspective of somebody who's sat on the skid and had a pilot bring me up beside the wire, and you're sitting there, hands on the wire, like looking down near the tail rotor, and that tail rotor is a few feet off the wire. You look up, that one's a few feet off the wire, and you're just like floating there. And they're like, the good ones are so good. They're so good. And you don't realize the skill that's actually involved in just like making that happen. Making sure the equipment.
Go latch onto one and see see if you can hold still. And it's so specialized.
Yeah.
So specialized. And like the good ones, those guys should be making every bit as much. Why not make journeyman scale when you're up in the wire?
Yeah.
Specialized job. He's keeping everybody alive, literally. There's different. I mean, it's going to be really difficult to do, but I hope that, with quanta aviation and the stuff that's coming along, that maybe later on, further on down the road, these guys can, for the amount of money that they put into just to become a pilot, to go fly tours of the Grand Canyon, entry-level position, by the way.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, that's your second step. Your first is instruction in America. It's different in Canada. But here, where I went, that dude that taught me to fly was learning to fly last month. And he paid, $100,000 to get to that point.
So crazy.
So I just hope that as an industry, we can, that will evolve, because those guys are responsible for so much. And there's never less than two people depending on him or her to get back in one piece. And I was super hard on myself. And that might be a little bit of why I just took a step back, because as much as I do like pressure, and just at that point in my life, I wasn't really cut out for dealing with that mental load at that point in time, and also a newborn baby and trying to provide, and you're dealing with a massive pay cut, and the light at the end of the tunnel is 15 years away, and it's there's a lot of good guys out there that need to be taken care of, and they're away from home just as much, if not more, than we are,
Totally.
And
Totally.
it's crazy, because anybody that argues, go down to your local flight school, take a discovery flight, and try to hover.
Yeah.
Just 3 feet off the ground. It's just, and you develop a whole nother respect for it. But
it's amazing
I
how
wanted
steady they are, and just like 100% agree with you. They're just, when you see videos of them, and they're just like cool, calm, collected, just floating, and it's windy and like wire everywhere, like there's chaos in any direction, and they're just like surgeons with the way they maneuver.
Oh yeah, and it's you learn to fly in an R-22 here, which where I was learning to fly in Prescott, it's a mile high exactly.
Yeah.
And that thing does not have on a hot day in July, the power is just not there.
Yeah.
To even, you're running light loads to get off the ground just to take off, but you get used to flying this thing. And then in my position, working with the company that I would go on ferry flights and with our line pilots, and those guys were all instructors, so that would get logged as instruction time, in a 600, just compared to that R-22, it's just a beast of a helicopter with all kinds of power. And flying here cross country in Northern California, and okay, man, you got it. Like, we'll leave the job and pack up all this stuff, and I'll fly it back to the hangar, just point A to point B. But it's okay. Like, you make all do your thing, make all the radio calls. I'll be here if you need me. He's over there on Instagram or whatever, and walking it into the airport, and just you get down into your ground effect, and you feel just the power of this machine. Like, it's like, and you're just like, oh my God, like it's actually doing what I'm telling it to do. And it's hugely intimidating. And then you see these guys, like, you get out of shape and they just grab the controls and just like right back to where you need to be. And he's like, yeah, like, he's like a $60,000 a year employee, like, out here working on the road. Like, it's bullshit. Like, for those guys, and they get, when stuff goes haywire, they just stay calm. Where we can just like hit it with our hammer on our clients and get out of it.
So true.
They have to kind of, take their time and be smart about it, and don't flip out, keep your cool. Those are really valuable employees that I hope that the guys that are involved in our trade, their pay and their benefits definitely needs to catch up with what they're doing.
Roger that.
However, just putting that out into the universe, however that comes about.
I love it. I don't know anymore enough to speak on it well enough, but I believe you.
Yeah, I wanted to say that publicly, that my utmost respect to having done solo flights, and I've been up there by myself. Like, that's a feeling of alone that you can't experience until you're up there, and you got to get yourself back down. And these guys just they live in that world of if something goes wrong, there's no way for everything where you need to be able to give yourself a fighting chance. They're just too low, and they don't have any airspeed either, and they take care of us. And I think that we need to figure out some way to go to bat for those guys.
I challenge anybody who would argue different to hook themselves up to the bottom of a long line.
Yeah.
And let a shitty pilot fly you 1,000 feet in the air.
Yeah. And I the first guys that I was exposed to, they were great guys, but I distinctly remember standing next to the helicopter as he rolled up throttle and spooled it up. We were in Arizona, and he looked over at me before he took off, and he flicked his visor down and just gave me a thumbs up. And like, nobody was, this was all by myself. Nobody was going with me first time, like before all the training that we do out here now. And I just remember, like, as he was picking up and the downwash hit me, I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, why am I doing this? But it's like, it goes against everything that you're supposed to do. Yeah. But somebody is responsible up there. It's not a drone, and it's you. So if there's one thing I'd like to see is those guys definitely get taken care of better.
Yeah. Roger that.
What else you got for me there, man?
Yeah. Cool, buddy. No, I was just going to say, I appreciate your time. I was going to ask you the same thing. If you've got anything else you'd like to talk about, I've got a couple more kind of closing questions, just a couple of fun, finish my sentence type questions. We'll do that. All right. If I wasn't a lineman, I would be what? I think I know this one already.
Broke. No, I would be a pilot.
So you'd be broke.
Yeah, I would be. Well, there you go. It's the one thing I wish I would have discovered before. But providing for family outweighs that desire now.
Yeah. Pilot is still on my list. I would love to fly helicopters. I definitely still want to get fixed wing license just for fun. It's on my bucket list. I'm checking off my first bucket list item and going to Mount Everest base camp here in October. So I always
Oh
wanted to
man.
climb. I always wanted to climb the tallest mountains in the world, but then I started having kids, and I realized it was selfish, and I didn't want to die on a mountain. It's just too selfish
Yeah,
to do.
did you watch that The Alpinist
Oh yeah,
on Netflix? Yeah,
absolutely.
that gave me anxiety just watching it from my living room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you're one of
also,
those guys.
yeah, I climb frozen waterfalls in the winter. It's how I get my climbing fix.
Yeah. No, that is not me at all. I got severe anxiety just watching it.
Oh,
It
that's
took
good.
me like 4 nights to watch it. I couldn't make it through it.
All right, what's the most valuable tool in a lineman's kit?
Uh, the radio.
Good call.
Well, not the tunes are great to have, but that communication for when shit goes awry, at least in my situation, where you're out remote, communication is your lifeline.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one thing I learned from Jocko actually was like, make sure you're staying cool, calm, and collected on the radio, even if shit's going awry. Just try to,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
be clear, concise, to the point, keep it short. Try
and
anyway.
that goes for any kind of really any communication
Yep.
on the radio. Transmission work, especially when your radios are literally part of the toolkit. We don't need your life story. Just give us the information, clear the channel. But like we're in the middle of a wire pull, or we're setting poles or tower tops, helicopters. Like, just give us the information we need, and let's move on.
Yeah.
So don't sit there with the mic keyed, please.
Roger that. Favorite part about being a lineman is
The opportunities that it creates for other endeavors.
cool.
Aside from everything that we talked about with this podcast, but if you want it to be, it can be your gateway to do anything that, really anything that you want to do. I mean, I know guys that, do you know Cameron Miller at all? He's from Alaska.
I kind of recognize the name. I don't know.
Yeah, he's he's like, he dives now,
Oh,
like
cool.
goes down into caves and like, whatever the super high level of diving, travels the world. But when I met him, he was a lineman,
Yeah.
and now he has a business instructing that.
So cool.
I mean, it can, whatever you want to do, it can take you there.
If you could change one thing about the industry, what would it be?
Lack of accountability on all fronts. We as workers need to be held accountable to do an honest day's work, and management needs to be held accountable to provide us with opportunity to succeed. But oftentimes when things go awry, that the lowest man on the totem pole can be left holding the bag. I don't want to get into a whole philosophy discussion of that, but I believe that accountability, we need to reinstill accountability.
I like it. Okay, last one. Best piece of advice I ever received as a lineman is what?
As a lineman,
Yeah. Or in general, go ahead.
get out of, as a lineman, best piece of advice, not necessarily pertaining to the trade, what I mentioned right off the bat, get your debt taken care of.
Yeah.
Get your debt taken care of to where you can your mind is operating in where that is not affecting your decision making, and you can really truly set yourself up to make good decisions for yourself. And then as been a general foreman twice. The first time in Northern California was right when my son was about to be born. I had a lot of other stuff on my mind. So that one didn't go as well. But then in San Diego, was in the same position down there for a different company. And what I learned down there and had good teachers is let your men work. You know, more of that Jocko stuff and decentralized command. Like if you're gonna have a guy be a foreman, don't be a foreman for him. Let him do his thing, and you know, you can kind of set your parameters and this is what I want done, but it's not. I think that maybe that's what's led to a little bit of the demise of the trade, is that we've kind of become a culture of like, it's going to get done my way, and I need to be down there driving across San Diego County. You can't be everywhere, at once. So, and that's, you know, so let people do their job, and you do yours.
Hold them accountable,
whatever that job is. Hold them accountable.
That's the ticket.
But let people do their job, and if you're in charge in that capacity, your job is to set those guys up for success. When they ask for tools, do your damnedest to get them. If they need equipment, do your damnedest to get it. Go to bat for your men and hold them accountable to go to bat for you. Like, hey, we need to get this done, and just, but also don't expect people to be more than what they can be, just because my superintendent told me down there, just because you listen to Jocko podcasts and go run down the beach and go, work out and push yourself, and you're in here reading like a nerd all the time, don't expect these guys to have that same energy. You know, if you want to get guys that have that energy, great. But like, if guys don't want, let guys be themselves and let them play their position. And not everybody wants to climb up the ladder. Some guys are perfectly fine with being linemen, and they'll play there, but give them the opportunity to play that position. And don't put more on them than what they want, because where I would want to rise to the occasion and fight my way through it, you can't expect that out of people, because there are a lot of people, they're gonna do what they get paid for, and don't be expecting them to do your job. So it's just more accountability, I guess, is really hold yourself to it. But biggest and best advice is, you have a job. If you're out here in California, lots of us have the opportunity to have $300,000 years plus. There's no reason any of us should be living paycheck to paycheck. Handle your debt, set yourself up for things to be good for you and your family. Invest that money for your kids when they're little. You won't be having to pay for them to go to line school or whatever it is, but you can really do yourself a lot of favors with just when those $6,000-$7,000 checks are rolling in. Man, it's a lot more fun to put it in the savings account than give it to Chase Bank or whoever. I think that's probably the biggest thing you can do for yourself, and really affects your decision making in a positive way. And if it's just real quick, I was out here with 6 figures worth of debt, done it twice, and I've gotten out of it twice as a result of just the trade and apprenticeship. I was going through a rough time when I was a second step, and I had a GF pull me aside. We went for a ride in the truck. What's going on? And it was girl problems and all this stuff that you have 20 years old, 21 years old. He said, well, as somebody that's been divorced twice, let me tell you something. Take care of this trade, and it'll take care of you. And that journeyman ticket, that will be the only thing that she can't take from you. So she can take all your stuff, and you can go make more money, and you'll get other stuff. But take care of the trade, and it'll take care of you. And I've carried that with me, because both times, man, I've had some good debt, but I can always take care of it and get the ball rolling. And it can be stressful. So if anybody out there is stressing on it and you want to talk about it, like, find me. I love to talk about it, and I'll tell you my story, because I was a complete derelict with my money, and not that I have a bunch of money now, but just reach out to people and get help on it, and get pointed in the right direction, and there's absolutely no shame in it.
Love it, man. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show, man, and having a conversation with me.
It's been great. Hopefully we can talk again soon sometime.
All right, guys, I hope you got some value out of that episode. I know I love bringing these to you. I love diving into these topics. I hope you, I don't know, get you thinking a little bit differently about what it truly means to be a journeyman lineman and what that means to you personally. All right, I'm just going to ask that you like, subscribe, follow, all of the good things. It is something I noticed that not everyone that listens to the show is actually subscribed to the show. So if you could go ahead, hit that subscribe button or hit that follow button. Even if you want to go so far as leave a review, even if it's a 1-star, I appreciate each and every review. It really helps push this content forward to more people. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that. Catch you on the next one.